Biden is under fire for commuting the sentences of roughly 34 to 37 death row inmates. Of roughly 34 to 37 death row inmates. I want to see what y'all thoughts are on this, because this is one of the rare few subjects where I'm a little bit torn. All right, I'm going to get it from both the liberal side, CNN, and I'm going to get it from the conservative side, Fox News, and then we're going to have a conversation. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's rock.
Turning now to the surprise action today by President Biden commuting the sentences of 37 of the 40 federal prisoners currently on death row, commuting those sentences to life without parole. Now, this comes, of course, before the president-elect, who supports capital punishment, takes office. The Trump transition team calling the move a, quote, abhorrent decision, adding that it benefits those, quote, among the worst killers in the world. Back with us, Jeff Tubin, who's the author of the upcoming book, The Pardon, The Politics of Presidential Mercy, and also U.S. former federal judge Nancy Gertner. Good to have both of you. Judge Gertner, I want to point out, you were one of those 38 legal voices who sent a letter to President Biden asking him specifically to commute all the sentences of those on federal death row. How do you feel about this decision to commute all but 3?
Well, I think the decision to commute,
thank you, Angela,
even the numbers that he did,
Shout out
was
to Kicking It With
terribly
a
important. There are all sorts of challenges to the death penalty that have been growing over the years. The concern that innocent people are being executed, the profound disparities between black and white people who wind up on death row.
Wait. Before we get into this, why does this always go back to color? Because I don't even know who people are that are on death row. I don't know if they white. I don't know if they black. I don't know what they are. Why is this always a color thing? And why is this not a crime thing? When did we start looking at death row inmates, the people that have created or committed some of the most egregious crimes on humanity, and when did we start separating them based off of black and white? If you're talking about drug crimes, you can make a case for that. If you're talking about, white collar crime, you can make a case for that. You can have that discussion, and you can start talking about it. How did this become a color issue when it came to commuting the sentences of death row inmates? That's crazy to me. That is insane to me.
Even the public support for the death penalty has waned. So I think that what President Biden did was exactly right. It's interesting. He was actually a prime sponsor of the 1994 crime bill, which led to additional federal death penalties. So what's interesting is that the facts have moved him, and as they should all of us.
Jeff, I know you've made the point, too, that no one has actually been released from prison because of these commutations and these pardons from President Biden. Those who were pardoned had already been released, essentially. Do you anticipate, because he can, that he will go farther in the final weeks of his presidency?
Biden's
his record is already
are an anomaly in our constitutional system because there are no checks and balances. It's just what the president wants, and you learn a lot about presidents through their pardons.
How many of y'all actually think that the commuting of sentences, possibly come from, or even pardons for that matter, that a lot of pardons or commuting of sentences could come from big money that's being thrown in certain ways? I don't think that it's beyond the realm of possibility. I believe that this whole migrant crisis was a way to continue to launder money. Personally, I can't prove it. That's just my personal opinion. I believe that the migrant crisis, that what we see coming over in our borders, I believe that a lot of what we see happening in politics today is the laundering of money. Personally, you cannot convince me that one way or another, you can't convince me that they're letting people over here that ultimately torch people on subways and that they're just letting them through and there's no financial incentive that comes along with it. No way in hell. I believe that almost everything you see that happens on a high level, guns, drugs, all of that, I believe that most of it is some form of money laundering. Now, these sentences in particular, I can't speak to, but I can't just dismiss the theories of people that then say this, because Why would Biden do this?
With Biden, there are very contradictory elements. He is a serious Catholic. The Catholic Church
He is
is
serious Catholic.
opposed to
Get
the
the hell
death
out of here,
penalty.
bro.
One tip-off that he was
When
going
did Biden
to
become
issue
a serious
these
Catholic?
commutations is he's going to see the Pope next month, and the Pope has urged him to do that. However, he is also part of a generation of Democrats that really wanted to be tough on crime. He was a sponsor of the crime bill under Bill Clinton, which expanded the death penalty, made it harder to challenge death penalty convictions. And he is reluctant to let anyone out of prison. He commuted 1,500 sentences a couple weeks ago. They were all already out of prison. These 37 are never leaving prison. So he has not actually let anyone out of prison yet. And I don't know, as going forward, whether he's going to do that. He has hundreds of Justice Department approved pardon recommendations on his desk. I don't know if he'll sign them.
Yeah, what he'll choose to do with those. In his statement today, he wrote, "In good conscience, I cannot stand back and let a new administration resume executions that I halted." Judge Gardner, what are your concerns when it comes to President-elect Trump's policy toward executions?
Well, we know the last time that there were, I think it was 13 executions, which his orders had hastened. And
Somebody said, how is it money laundering? All right, do y'all understand how money moves? And I'll give you a small example, right? And I'm not saying that this is true, but let's just explore it for the sake of conversation. Kamala Harris raised over $1.5 billion, right? Over $1.5 billion. Over 4 to 5 million people gave on average over $57 to the Kamala Harris campaign. Several different people was able to see a lot of that money go directly into their pockets by then creating companies and saying that we're a media organization that is advocating for and running ads to your people. I'll give you an example. Let's take Roland Martin. He was pissed and he was saying that he should have got more than $350,000 to his media company. Al Sharpton allegedly got over $500,000. Now, let me ask this question to y'all. How much of an impact do you think that Al Sharpton had to be able to warrant $500,000 in donations and advertising from the Kamala Harris campaign that would impact this election? Let's go a step further. A lot of the people that then benefited from this, directly benefited from this, were frat brothers, frat sisters, and a part of the Divine Nine. Grew up with this person. Let's take it a step further. How then would this affect you in future business? And more importantly, your ability to be able to give kickbacks, not necessarily directly, but indirectly in a lot of different ways. But also you can justify using somebody else's money in order to achieve more power, which then elevates you to a status that allows for you to be more successful financially. When you start to follow how money moves, right? One of the things that people were criticizing Hunter Biden for was his dealings with China and Ukraine. We just so happen to see a war over in Ukraine. So if, hypothetically speaking, your people is in a position of power, which we then call Democrats the war machine, but then you own a company that then directly benefits from the federal government sponsoring, in my opinion, sponsoring wars that we shouldn't be in. And we always asking the question, well, why are migrants coming over here? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? And then you then are able to benefit directly or indirectly from it, whether it's a company that you own or a manufacturer or a stock that you hold or whatever, which is one of the reasons why they're trying to ban trading within Congress. How does that not directly and indirectly affect you when you are one of the decision makers of what happens with legislation and finances inside of the United States of America? Let's continue.
we know that among that group were people with intellectual
Allegedly. This is all just theory to try to substantiate why people believe the way that they believe. This is not to say that this is facts.
disabilities. We know among that group one woman in particular who had been suffered extraordinary abuse.
I do agree with that, Slimmy. I don't believe that all. That's where me and you disagree with. You said that you believe that every single last politician is compromised. I do not believe that all. I believe that most are. I believe that most human beings are compromised. I believe that most people, let alone politicians, are compromised.
I mean, these were executions that were done with, in my view, unseemly haste to get them through. And given the kinds of problems with the death penalty, it should give all of us pause. We know that the death penalty is not a meaningful deterrent. The concerns for victims, which are very important, are oftentimes exacerbated by death penalty prosecutions, which last years and years and years. In the Boston bomber case, for example, one of the victims, the family of one of the victims, urged the court to, in fact, allow him to plead guilty to life without parole so it could be over. So I would be very troubled by another sort of rush to kill people, which is really what these executions are.
I'm going to go over and I'm going to get the conservative side, because they're saying that the families of the victims are absolutely outraged at the fact that these people sentences were commuted, and taxpayer. Here's the other side of it. Taxpayers are the ones that foot the bill. What's going on? You need help? Taxpayers are the ones that foot the bill. We are the ones that continue to feed these inmates and these prisoners to the tune of, depending on where you at, between $50,000 and $100,000 a year per prisoner. And that taxpayer dollar is going to continue to house you. In addition to whatever crime that you committed, that you then have like 20 years to appeal before you eventually get your sentence commuted. This is what the families are saying, y'all.
Joe Biden commuted the death sentences of 37 death row inmates just 2 days before the families of their victims gather for Christmas. Biden defending his move, explaining, quote, "I condemn these murderers and grieve for the victims of their despicable acts, but guided by my conscience and my experience, I am more convinced than ever that we must stop the use of the death penalty."
How many people actually think that Biden is writing his own statements or even giving his own thoughts?
Joining us now are Heather Turner, Katie Jenkins, and Danny Major, the daughters and husband of Donna Major, who was murdered back in 2017 in a bank robbery by a career criminal whose sentence was just commuted by President Biden. I'm sorry to be talking to all three of you under these circumstances. I cannot even put myself in your position to know how difficult this would be any week, but especially Christmas week. Heather, what was your reaction when you heard the news?
Anger, absolute anger. We were told from our prosecution team on Sunday afternoon. I was actually gathered with my in-laws for our family Christmas. My sister was gathered with her in-laws, and we got the call, and I was angry. I'm still angry. I am upset that this is even happening, that one man can make this decision without even talking to the victims, without any regard for what we've been through, what we're going through. I'm completely hurt, frustrated, and angry.
So, Heather, nobody gave you a heads up that this was coming from the White House?
So in May, we heard that this was a possibility. And at that point, we began writing letters to the pardon attorney. I reached out requesting an in-person meeting in D.C., and we were refused. They denied our right to have our voices heard. That we're victims. My mother was murdered at the hands of Brandon Hansel. They should have heard our story, and all we got was a 10-minute virtual conference, and clearly that fell on deaf ears. They did not want to hear our story.
Danny, Joe Biden, or whoever made this decision, because it is entirely unclear whether this came from him directly or his people. He's showing mercy to your wife's killer. Was your wife shown any mercy?
She was shown no mercy at all. This man walked into the bank, never said 2 words to her, shot her 3 times in total, went and shot her coworker, Katie Skeen, as well, who was totally defenseless and unaware that anything was happening.
That's crazy.
It's just beyond me that
crazy.
I can't even believe that this has actually happened. A commuting of sentences like this of 37 victims. All but 3, which was certainly a political scheme, undoubtedly. Joe Biden was also told by the Pope that he should stop these executions. Now, what the Pope has to do with anything in this country, I don't know. But Joe Biden certainly has no convictions. He's a senile old man. He couldn't tie his shoes, I wouldn't think, if you could see him in person. It's absolutely disgusting.
Well, continuing his MO of the past 4 years, he bent to the far left, whether it is this far left Pope, which many Catholics have said about this Pope, or members of his own party. He has bent the knee to the left wing of the Democrats. And that includes squad member Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who said this to the news. Listen.
The death penalty has not been proven to be a deterrent of crime. State-sanctioned murder is not justice. And today, what President Biden did demonstrated moral leadership, compassionate leadership, informed by his own faith. It has had a disparate impact on low-income people, Black people, and other marginalized.
See, this is where you lose people, because the reason why it's difficult for me to really have an opinion on this prior to doing more research, and I pride myself in being very well versed, and I also would have to do some research even within my own faith to have this conversation authentically, because there's some things that I'm very confident in speaking about, but this is one of them that I'm conflicted, because I do believe that justice needs to be served. And then at the same time, I'm not sure what justice actually looks like. But it's hard for me to even have this type of opinion that this woman having in front of them. And it's disrespectful because she's never been through and experienced something like the people whose families are affected by these death row inmates that's being commuted. Your mother, your wife, I couldn't imagine. Shh. You know what? I'm not even sure that my faith will play a role in it, because I'm going to just tell you, sometimes there are some instances where you just react and everybody going. Everybody got to go. I'm probably not, I'm going to call the police to meet me there, but I'm going to get there before the police do, because I got to get you. I got to get you. I got to get to you. Listen, you do something that's some of the most evil, hateful, wildest crimes that's ever, I got to get you. I see red. I'm going to ask God for forgiveness after I get to you. I got to ask God I'm going to hope and pray that I ask, that God just see my heart and that I can make up for it at some point. And hopefully the good outweigh the bad by the time that I die, because I got to get you. I got to get you. And for her to just be speaking this matter of fact without taking into consideration how families are affected when people are doing some of the most hateful, evil crimes. I mean, listen, there's people that's out here doing some of the worst, nasty things and then being serial killers when it comes to children. There's people that's out here basically doing some of the most evil, nasty things, and they have no regard for human life. And for her to be sitting here standing on this social justice warrior, identity politics, disproportionately affect communities of color, man, take that junk and stuff it where the sun don't. Nobody care about that. Get out of here with that nonsense. How can somebody speak so matter of fact about an issue that's not affecting them? You see what I'm saying? I could speak from the lens of a person that was poor because I was poor at some point in my lifetime, and I understand how poor people think. I know why people go out and take bad loans and stuff like that, which is one of the reasons I try to incentivize people to do something better, because I can speak from that lens. I understand the language of broke. You can't speak on something that you're not familiar with so matter of fact. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's disrespectful to not even take into consideration how the families are affected.
A person's.
Katie, when Ayanna Pressley refers to compassion, what is your response to the Congresswoman?
Compassion? I don't think that that's compassion. The fact that he didn't talk to any of us, the victims of this crime, we trusted the judicial system. We sat through court. I watched my mother be murdered. I watched images of her body laying on the ground. He does not have compassion for who? A criminal? A criminal? No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all.
Heather.
So that is what's happening. Biden is currently under fire. I don't think that Biden cares. Honestly, I don't think he cares. It's not anything that he's worried about. He's not worried about his legacy at this point. He's burning down the entire White House. and everything that has ever come with the White House. I don't think that Biden cares. I don't think he's checking for nothing that nobody is saying. So it don't even matter. Y'all sitting here complaining. These families are sitting here whining. He wouldn't take a meeting with y'all to hear y'all out in the first place.